Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
And just like that, we have a series. Welcome to Game Over Calgary. I'm Peter. He's Audie. We will get into the specifics in just a matter of moments, but the Battle of Alberta is now tied. Can the Flames bounce back to take the lead as this series heads to Edmonton for Game 3? Ask our friends over at Sports Interaction. Doing it right since 1997, Sports Interaction is Canada's sportsbook. With the most competitive odds, Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out before the game starts, live in play, or how your favorite player will perform. You can probably just automatically assume McDavid's getting the over on points. See all that sports betting has to offer. Join now at sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 years and older. Please play responsibly. Peter Klein, Audie James with you today. And Audie, I was saying to Jesse before we got on here, we said this was going to be a long series. That doesn't mean Calgary just gets to win a bunch of close games. If it's going to be a long series, Edmonton gets to get a couple as well, and they get one tonight with a 5-3 victory. I guess your overall feelings and thoughts. How are you after a Game 2 loss?
Well, I'm as well as I can be, I think. Especially given that it was a late one too. It was an 8:30 local start, and I apologize if you're watching on the East Coast. This is all hours of the night. It's approaching 2 a.m. So feel for you there if you stayed up for this one, especially if you stayed up for this one on the East Coast as a Flames fan, because they looked good through 20, but they failed to look good for the remaining 40 of this hockey game. It was definitely one where Edmonton had full control and full throttle. We saw some flashes where Calgary could potentially do something, but they didn't end up doing anything. And it was just a game. It was a game, and I'm feeling okay, I guess we could say, because there's still lots of hockey left to play. We got a tied series, so it's gonna be fun going forward.
Yeah, it is. And it did really seem like Calgary kind of started to falter a little bit. Like they looked they played how I felt as this game went along, where it's getting a little bit late. I mean, I know it's late in Eastern time. It's not early here. So I was feeling the time a little bit, and it seemed like the Flames were. But when they were kind of dominating, and this is a theory that an old colleague of mine, Peter Labardius, would talk about a lot. No matter what's happening in a game, both teams are going to get some runs where they're in control. Like that's just how this sport works, unless there's just a sound and thorough ass kicking going on, which we've seen this Flames team do. But both teams at points are going to get theirs. And I thought the Flames, they got theirs, and they got a couple of goals with it, and that's great, and everyone's happy. However, Connor McDavid was on the other end, making sure the Oilers never felt too far behind. And then when Edmonton started to take over, because a lot of it was not 5-on-5, it didn't really feel like there was anyone from the Flames who was like, all right, boys, here we go. Like, I'm not saying someone needs to be Connor McDavid, but someone needs to at least try. And I didn't think there was enough of that in this game from a Calgary perspective.
No one really took over. And I think that's kind of what you were trying to get at here. And you put out a good tweet earlier in the game where it spoke true to just about the entire hockey game. When McDavid has the puck, it just always seems like I can't remember the exact verbiage you used, but it always seems like something's going to happen, or there should be danger on the loom. And I felt like that. I didn't feel like that last game as much. And this game, it just felt like every time he had the puck, it was something good was going to happen. And he had a lot of good chances. He found the back of the net. He set up a lot of good opportunities. He held Anderson's stick, and they end up scoring on that play, which drove me bonkers, which we can maybe talk about the officiating in this game too, which was, I think they let this one get away. But yeah, he's something else, man. He's, I found that this game specifically, how many times are you going to let the best player on the planet be open on the doorstep?
Yeah.
You look at that goal that he scored, and then there were other opportunities throughout the rest of the game where he's just wide open. Nobody's covering him. That goal he scored, you could blame it on Zadorov for taking the body and putting himself out of position. But he just seemed to always be open, and there was no contest.
Yeah. A couple of things. One, there is no in position on McDavid. There are just varying degrees of being out of position. He's
That's
so
true.
Good. But no, like I said again to apparently Jesse and I had a great in-depth conversation before you got on. But I was saying to him, anytime McDavid touches the puck, and the Oilers don't score or get a penalty or get a power play, it feels like a win. That is how dominant McDavid was in this hockey game, especially in the first half of it. And in the back half of it, Zach Hyman just decided he was the best player in the world because he had a phenomenal game and he was able to capitalize on his opportunities. But no, that this was at least for the first half of the game, this was the Connor McDavid show, and he really let the Oilers kind of get their footing as it looked again. Calgary goes up 2-0, and it looks like they can start to take this game over and start to pull away. And McDavid is there to not allow that.
Yeah, it was, I almost feel like responsible for a little bit. I put out a tweet after Smith lets the second goal in, and I'm like, oh, is Skinner going to start game 3? Like, beating my chest. And, that comes around to bite me in the ass, apparently. But, on that note too, I think Smith, as the game progressed, looked more and more calm and composed and kind of like the Mike Smith that, looked okay in the first round and kind of finished the year for Edmonton the way he did. So kudos to him for sticking to it and finding a way, and the Edmonton Oilers for playing a pretty damn good hockey game. I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due. I know we poo-poo on the Flames for the way they played, but you look at the other end and there's an Edmonton team that put on a full performance and they reap the benefits there. But yeah, all in all, just a great game for the Oilers, I think, too. Just they played damn near perfect.
Yeah, I don't want to go too far without getting to the chat, but just a couple more things to kind of round this all out. I thought we once again saw a Flames team that didn't make life difficult enough on Mike Smith. And again, in game 1, Mike Smith just made life difficult on Mike Smith. But I felt like early on, the first shot of the game, Gaudreau gets that wrist shot, and Smith, he did a thing that always drove me crazy when he was with the Flames, and he just fell over into it. It wasn't the full flop like we used to see, but as soon as that happened, I thought, oh, they got him. Like that, this is not a good Mike Smith.
Vintage night. Mike Smith.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't think there was enough done to take advantage of how just like riding the edge of the lightning bolt Mike Smith was in this. But that was just a thought there. Anyway, let's get to the chat. I'm imagining maybe not quite as positive as what we've seen the last couple of games.
Yeah, from what I'm seeing so far, at least. Mike saying worst officiated, game of the postseason. Pretty weak calls all around tonight. Yeah, I mean, I've always been team stripes because I know how hard of a job that is. I encourage people, if you think it's that easy, lace them up and go try it out for yourself. So usually I'm pro ref. I still am for the most part. But there were some calls tonight that maybe were questionable, or some calls that weren't made that should have been made. I'm looking right away at that icing that was waved off that led to I believe it was the go-ahead goal for Edmonton. I think it would have been the game winner. I think it was that Hyman who scored that one?
Hyman would have had the winner. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a bad play. I mean, the missed hold on McDavid behind the net, coming around the net, clearly blatantly holding on to Rasmus Anderson's stick there. It's tough, and I know it's tough because the play happens so fast and you're not going to catch everything, and I have all the respect in the world for officials, but I would agree that it wasn't the worst officiated game, I don't think, but it definitely wasn't the best. What do you think?
No, I agree. And it did seem like they knew that this game had the potential to get out of hand. Like with the way game 1 ended, it kind of felt like they came in saying, we're not going to let this one get out of hand. We're going to keep them all in line. And in doing so, I thought it completely killed any flow that this game had for a long time. And yeah, like some of them, the McDavid one on Anderson, that one doesn't bother me as much because just Rasmus Anderson's never getting that call on Connor McDavid. Like that's that's not one that is going to go. It would be lovely if they did, but they're not going to. But there were some other ones where it was like, really, this is what we were doing, admittedly on both sides. But yeah, I thought this was a pretty poorly officiated game, and I thought they were so focused on getting in the way of the rough stuff that they got in the way of the hockey game.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartely agree there. This one, maybe Brady can lace him up for game 3. Wouldn't be opposed to that. He's having the time of his life. I think the story off the ice of Brady Tkachuk has been one to follow for sure. He's having the time of his life, him and Big Walt. You can't give up those breakaways. You would want to stop from Markstrom on that, but you can't give quality players free shots on your goaltender, which I would tend to agree with.
Yeah.
The last couple of goals there were definitely some blunders there that led to some open looks and open chances the other way. So
Yeah.
that was frustrating.
Well, and this is a trend, right? Like we saw Dallas get behind the defense a couple times in the last series, and now it's happening again in this series. And it seems, just anecdotally, it seems like it's Goodbranson 100% of the time. Like that, it seems like whenever there is someone in the chase position, it is him, and that's a problem. I didn't like a lot from the Flames defensively in this game.
I didn't like any of it, I don't think.
No.
Aside from the Stone goal.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. The man who can do no wrong, Michael
That's
Stone.
Right.
I like Markstrom, a couple of those, it would have been great to get a save on, but I'm not putting this one on him necessarily. I thought he was substantially better than he was in game one. I thought there were a few saves where he was able to like at least look at least similar to the goalie who got a Vezina nomination during the regular season. It would have been great to get a breakaway stop on Hyman and Leon Draisaitl, but those are two top 6 players in the NHL. Like not, you know what I mean? Like they are top. Yeah,
yes,
you know what
they're
I mean?
top of the league.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Elite players.
Yeah. They are guys who would be on first or second lines anywhere in the National Hockey League. So for those guys to score on those, it's fine. It's the defense that led them to that. Also, this is something that bugged me a little bit. I understand the mantra in hockey is now and forever has been, oh, just put the puck on net and something good can happen. You know what else can happen? It can hit a freaking shin pad and said Zach Hyman going that way. And that happened too much with the Flames tonight. It's something we talk about in basketball a lot. Shot selection was an issue. There was one, the puck was kind of slowly trickling back to the blue line, and Shillington busts his ass to get there. Great. Blindly turns around and just wastes one right into the shin pads. I think, again, it was Hyman who was there, and that created an odd a rush opportunity for Hyman that I don't think it led to a goal, but it led to a chance.
Yeah.
And so there was that. Zadorov had a defender right in front of him and just, yeah, whatever, sure, fine. Like it was an issue in the first series because Ottinger was stopping everything. And now Edmonton's getting in the way of everything. You can't just waste them into the shin pads, especially when you have a forward group that I think is playing pretty well. So I was very frustrated with the Flames blue line, both offensively and defensively tonight.
Everything seems so forced, like, and not just the shots. And you talk about shot selection. That was one of the things I wanted to hit on, was the fact that, the opportunities were there, but they're throwing them, into a lane that has a body in front, or, the guy's 2 feet in front of you. He's more than likely gonna stop that one. But another thing too, I think a lot of passes in the offensive zone, especially on the power play, were just forced trying to go cross ice, and it hits 2 or 3 sticks, bounces out of the zone. I'm not trying to say that Gaudreau played a bad game, but I think he needs to trust his shot more on the power play, because it seems like he just was always looking for that pass, and Edmonton is reading it perfectly every single time.
Yeah.
They know where to go. They know where to put a stick. They know where to put a leg, put a body, and they break that pass up. Same with that little play they set up where they got, this time it was Toffoli down low. They got the guy on the wing who puts it down for Toffoli, and then it's either Gaudreau or Lindholm or whoever in front of the net. They try to go tic-tac-toe. And I see them trying to do that again and again and again this playoffs, and it hasn't really worked. So I think it might be time to revisit that. And one other thing, how badly does Daryl and the rest of the Flames miss Tanev right now?
Oh, man.
How much is this being like, look, like he's sitting up there like probably chomping at the bit, because he knows that he can make these stops. But my goodness, it's starting to become more and more evident that he's more he's crucial on the blue line.
Yeah, it's as great as the Stone story has been. When McDavid's out there and Michael Stone is also out there, it concerns me greatly. And the same thing for Zadorov and Goodbranson. Like there's a lot of minutes being chewed up on this blue line by guys who I'm not comfortable defending Connor McDavid, and that's kind of something they're going to have to do. And now Edmonton gets last change, so they can kind of mix and match. Now, they kind of mixed and matched in this one where they just had McDavid playing the entire game, it felt like. So yeah, he gets every matchup because he's not coming off of the ice. At least that's what it felt like. But no, I am in 100% agreement with you. This was the one where I thought they really missed Tanev. Just hypothetically speaking, I don't know if we see Tanev in this series. We're not going to get an update on it. He's taking part in morning skates at least. And you feel like if it wasn't like if he wasn't doing well, that would be almost malpractice to just have him going out there. So you feel like maybe he's close, but let's just in the world of hypotheticals, if he is back in for game 3, I don't know if you take Stone out. Richie scored tonight. Do you take him out and go back to the 11-7? Because if you don't, I don't hate the idea of putting Shillington up in the press box for at least a game. I don't think he's played very well.
I would 150% agree with you. I don't think he's played well really at all this playoff, especially this series. I say you probably that's probably the move you make. Brett Ritchie has 2 goals in 2 games this series, and I don't know if you just keep riding the hot hand. Same thing with Michael Stone, who I think had some flashes tonight of not looking so hot, but for the better part of the game was, in on everything, was busting his ass to get back. And I think all in all played decently tonight. But yeah, that's the thing too, is what move do you make now? And I think the logical one, like you said, is to have Shillington have some time off, maybe a game or 2, depending on how game 3 goes. And you go from there, you reevaluate, because I mean, I don't think he's doing he's not looking like the Shillington that was dominant and had his breakout year this year for the Flames. That's for sure. So yeah, I would tend to agree with you for a very long-winded response.
No, that's good. Because I think you nailed it. Like, you're right. He just hasn't looked like himself in this at all. I want to kind of double back to the Gaudreau conversation a little bit. And this was a tough one for him to get going in, because as we talked about, there was a lot of special teams. And when the Flames are killing penalties, Johnny Gaudreau is sitting on the sidelines. And there was a lot of penalties, especially in that second period, as Edmonton was starting to come back. So I'm not putting all of this on him, but it is a tricky one to kind of assess how that top line played. I noticed him a lot. This was another one where I thought Matthew Tkachuk kind of faded into the background a little bit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that kind of comes back to one of the comments here. Where the heck is it here now? Basically, if I can find it, first 2 lines getting jabbed for minutes here, but that kind of, it makes sense if you circle back to the fact that they did spend a lot of time killing penalties and in turn playing in their own zone, which we know that Gaudreau line doesn't play a lot in their own end. They tend to play more offense than they do defense. Partner that with the fact he's not a penalty killer. He's not going to be on the ice nearly as much as that special teams unit will. And yeah, to your point about Tkachuk, it's funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking about that too. I was like, my goodness, this guy's had a couple good games, and all of a sudden, we're back to face on the back of the milk carton kind of thing. Like, where is this guy? This is not really what we expected or thought that Matthew Tkachuk would bring in a playoff series. I just hope that in game 3, he proves us wrong and makes us eat crow and comes out and does what he does, plays that Matthew Tkachuk gritty game. But yeah, all in all, I don't think he wasn't very noticeable, which is not very characteristic of Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah. And I wonder if the referees kind of, for lack of a better term, neutering this game kind of took Matthew Tkachuk out of it a little bit, because they were making it very clear that like someone was getting an advantage off of those scrums. And I wonder if Matthew Tkachuk was like, all right, it's not my night to be doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's it too. You don't want to put your team at a disadvantage even more than they already are, killing as many penalties as they had to in this game. So I don't know. Yeah, that could definitely have played a factor. And like I said, I just hope it's a different Matthew Tkachuk for game 3.
As you are looking at the chat, I guess anything else standing out to you from the chat before we move on to another subject here?
Yeah, just a couple here. Yeah, sorry, it was Bradford that mentioned the point about the lines there, the top line not getting as many minutes there. And Susie backing up on that one, saying, yeah, 22 PIMs will cut into some guys' time on ice. Gaudreau doesn't play on the PK. Refs sucked in this game on both sides. We already talked about that. Maybe it wasn't as bad. What farm reference does Sutter make tomorrow?
Oh,
that's a good prop bet.
That is that.
What did he say today? Did he have one today? Or
I
or was
don't
it? I
recall.
think today's was just the any changes to the lineup, not that I know of. I think
Yeah.
was today's was today's response,
God,
which
he's
is
good. Oh,
he's
he's
very
so
good.
good.
He's
Yeah.
so good with his words. It's yeah, I'm not sure what reference he makes tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll
I mean,
find out. He's
this
such a
one.
wild card. You
Oh,
don't know
yeah.
what you're gonna get with Daryl Sutter.
He could pull off some weird one. And look, like I grew up in Saskatchewan. I speak farmer. So like there are very few things that kind of go over my head in that way. But he pulls some stuff where it's like, wow, I did not see that one coming. I will say the Flames did not make hay while the sun was shining today. When they were having the advantage, that wasn't necessarily a strength of theirs. But aside from other farming ones, I'm gonna have to rack my brain on that one a little bit. It wasn't all bad from a Flames perspective. I know, like, obviously they lost to the Oilers. That's never a pleasant experience. But anything positively stand out for you in this game?
Well, I think we touched on it a little bit before, and you know, Jacob Markstrom, I think for the better part of this game, aside from that last little bit there, which you can't really even peg all on him, I think he looked great.
Mm-hmm.
He was tested, and he you know, kind of stood on his head on in some instances, but I think after a game where he allowed as many goals as he did and didn't look as good as he, you know, the Vezina contender that excuse me, Vezina finalist that he is this year or has been this year, I think he rebounded well. I think he played a heck of a hockey game. Um, and that's something that I don't want to get lost in this. I want, you know, something positive to look forward to. And hopefully that's kind of Jacob Markstrom shaking off the rust of whatever was, you know, ailing him, or maybe it was a between the years kind of thing for
Mm-hmm.
game one. And I just hope that he carries it into game three and the rest of this series, because it's a lot of fun to you know, it's easier as a team when you know your crease, everything's good in the crease. You just got to work your way out and work the kinks out from there. I think that's a good place to start. So I hope he continues along. What did you think of Markstrom?
I liked him. Like I said, I thought that there were a few times where he kept this one from getting out of hand sooner, I guess. Not that it eventually does get out of hand. Like 5-3 is certainly, I mean, the Flames scored 2 in a minute in game one. They could do it again. So it's not like this game was over quick, but I thought that there were times where there were breakdowns and Markstrom was there to help bail the team out. In terms of guys who I thought stood out positively in front of them, this was another one. I thought Blake Coleman was excellent in this game.
Yep.
Craig Simpson pointed it out that he had a special kind of nasty going for him in this game, and I thought it felt like a game where he was destined to score. That obviously doesn't end up happening, but I thought he was good. I feel like if there was something that was bugging Toffoli, it's gone now, because I think Toffoli's had a couple pretty good games in a row now. And once again, I will forever bring up that Dylan Dubé feels like when he scores one, he's going to score 8, because he is right there a bunch right now.
Yeah, and it's, you know, a shame there. It was, I can't remember who shot it from just inside the blue line.
Toffoli,
Was
the
it
tip that
Toffoli?
went just wide. Yeah,
The tip that just, I think it hit higher up on his stick than he was anticipating,
yeah,
because he had a tap in. I mean, that
yes.
goal was going in. And yeah, it's unfortunate because that would have, you know, obviously changed the dynamic of the game a little bit, but that's the beautiful game there. So yeah, he's close, and he's playing a heck of a series. Blake Coleman, though, what a man on a mission he is,
Oh,
eh?
yeah.
Oh my God, he's in on everything. He's chirping after the whistle. He's drawing penalties, and he's just been a lot of fun to watch. And like we talked about this last episode too, was, you know, this is what Calgary brought this guy in for. They
Yeah.
knew, like, this is Tampa knew what they were getting when they brought him in, and they win a couple cups with him. His arguably his Coleman, Goudreau and oh geez, Gord line there was fantastic in the playoffs, and I think he was the ringleader there, and he hasn't missed a beat. He looks like he did for those 2 cup runs with Tampa. So yeah, he's been a lot of fun to watch, and I just hope that the rest of the team can rally around that, because it's if they can all play that at that level, even in a game where, you know, maybe you don't deserve it like tonight, then watch out.
He seems like someone, like, I haven't played overly competitive sports in a very long time, and admittedly just try to keep the competitive part out of it because I get too competitive. Case in point, he seems like someone I would have to punch in the head at some point if I was playing against him, because he's always around it. He's playing really well. He's chirping you. He's hitting you. He's doing his little things that would just annoy the hell out of me. I would have to punch him in the face at some point. It would be a penalty. It would be remarkably selfish. I would feel better about it after. But yeah, he just has that little, hey, can you screw off for like 3 minutes, please?
He's that one guy in beer league, and speaking from experience, this is, I hope this guy's not watching. I doubt it, but he's that one guy in beer league who played like 4 or 5 years Div 2 in Sweden, and he's just skating laps around all the all the overweight 40-year-olds on the ice, right? Speaking from experience, I've had this guy on the ice before. And yes, he had a very punchable face, but he was very good at hockey and he got under our skin. So that's how I look at kind of how Blake Coleman's been playing so far in this playoffs.
Not going to get too far into it because this is like an actual serious post-game show thingy. But
Yes.
My hometown is like kind of the biggest of the small towns, and they have like their rec league. It's not just like this team versus this team, it's this town versus this town. And the senior men's team is run by the guy who owns the car dealership in town, and he actually did like the stereotypical small town car dealer guy where he hired a dude out of Sweden who was like kind of thinking about maybe coming back to Canada. It's like, oh, come be a mechanic, and hey, would you mind playing on our senior men's team? 10 points in 2 games. It was amazing.
That's some Danbury Trashers level of petty right there, bringing guys in.
Oh, it is like quintessential small town hockey. So just a quick little anecdote in there. Anything else? I always feel bad. I'm putting you on the spot.
No, don't be. I've got a couple good ones.
The chat's very reliable. So it's more faith in them than me being like, hey, Audie, go. But anything from the chat?
Good one here from Mike. McDavid is on a mission. Yeah, he definitely is.
No kidding.
That's a really good way of putting it. He's been a man on a mission for the past, last series and the first 2 games of this one. This one is interesting because I actually kind of wanted to talk about it and get your take on it. Sutter not taking a timeout before the 6-on-4 got underway seems like a mistake. They needed a minute to calm down and rein it in. What do you think? Because when that happened there, I had my brother over. He was watching the game with me, and we both kind of looked at each other. We're like, he's got to take a timeout here, right? And for a second there, we thought he was going to, but nothing. Not saying timeouts are the end all be all, but that just seemed like the perfect opportunity for a little, mental reset. You're about to go 6-on-4. You're down by 2. You got a timeout to use. Why don't you use it? What did you think?
I agree completely. I actually started writing Calgary timeout down in my notes, and then it didn't happen. I was like, oh, well, let's just write over this darker empty net.
Yes.
Because I was stunned that they didn't necessarily do that. And I thought there was a couple of things. Far be it from me to criticize Daryl Sutter. One of the guys, if they were going to build a statue of a coach in this city, it would be of him. I get the 4th line was like great considering they're a 4th line in this game. 2 shifts in the last 4 minutes when you are down by 2 goals. And look, they were 2 good shifts, but there is a ceiling to what those guys can do. And I hated that. You have enough.
I didn't like
talent,
that one bit.
You have enough talent on the top 9 that you just kind of have to roll through it. And then if they're a little bit tired, take the time out, like you mentioned. I thought at some point you staple those guys to the bench and say thank you for your services in this game, but it's time for our big boys to take this one home.
Yeah, I think they started. They got that start there at the 6-on-4, and I kind of looked at my brother. We looked at each other like, really? Like with 4 minutes and 23 seconds or whatever it was left in this game, you're down by 2, and you're gonna roll out this line to start. Like, and don't get me wrong, like you said, they actually, had a pretty productive shift. It didn't lead to anything, but they were able to, get some offensive zone time and a little bit of pressure and set something up. But yeah, like you said, they're not out there. Like their ceiling is much lower than pretty obviously much lower than the rest of the forward groupings there. And yeah, that was a bit of a head scratcher too. The lack of the timeout threw me off. And then the fact that their deployment really threw me off as well. So I don't really know what the mindset was there. I know better than to question Daryl. Right. That one was a bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah. Daryl's forgot more about hockey today than I'll never know in my life. But that one, yeah, I didn't like that one at all. Like you said, like it was a good 4th line shift, but they didn't need that at that point. If they did that in the second period, that's a hell of a shift. But to do that with 4 minutes left, basically what you have done is killed off a minute of that clock.
It's a good shift that's a good shift to take when you have the lead.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. If you're up by 2 late and you have that shift, oh my word, what a shift that is. We're writing poetry about it to this day. But yeah, no, that one I didn't like that one. So yeah, there's a couple of things on the Daryl docket that I wasn't a huge fan of in this one.
No, I agree. That pretty much wraps it up for chat right now. Okay. So we can let that catch up and move on, I suppose.
Assuming Tanev isn't Wolverine and isn't healed from whatever is ailing him going into the next one, which, look, I'm not ruling out that he might actually be Wolverine. I've never seen them both in the same place at the same time. But is there any other kind of lineup adjustment or anything that you would make? Like we talked about, the 2 guys who would be closest on the chopping block scored tonight, so it's tough to send them back up to the press box. But assuming no Tanev, is there something that you would change going into game 3?
I don't think so. I don't know who comes out and who goes in. I know we talked about it before. I believe it was before game 7 in the Dallas series where we talked about, do they need a bit of a shakeup here or what's the deal? And personally, I don't think that there's that it's warranted. We've talked about it a bit already. There's still lots of hockey left to play. It is a best of 5 now, which is unfortunate, but there's still potentially 5 games in this series. I don't think it's time to hit the panic button. But yeah, I don't think so. I don't, if Tanev's okay, then I think maybe, the option we talked about with Shillington coming out and Tanev going in would probably be the only move that I would make. But beyond that, I don't think that there's anything drastic. And it's funny because I've seen some people on Twitter say, does Vladar start game 3? To which I think is ludicrous, just because of the fact that I don't think you pin this loss on him. We talked about that already, and I don't think he looked particularly bad. So that would be a backwards move. So I know a lot of people on Flames Twitter are talking about it, at least. So figured I would bring that up and squish that bug right away. But no, I don't think that there's much I would change. What are you thinking?
No, I'm the same. Like I think when I look at this, like the Flames did not play well, so I would like for there to be like something that you alter. But unless Tanev is coming back, I don't like. We already talked about this. I don't know if I'm trusting Ruzicka at this point.
No,
I like him as a player. I think long term he has a fit on this Flames team. It's just not now, and I don't know. Like throwing Sutter has some kind of hate on for Valimaki, and now Valimaki hasn't won him over yet either. But like I would kind of like Shillington to have a night off, but there isn't, if no Tanev, there isn't an obvious option to throw in there. And then with the lines, I don't know if you juggle them around at this point. Another one who, like, it's not the end of the world. I would love it if Yarncroc would show up in these playoffs. Like we haven't seen it really at all yet. And he has turned into one of those guys where he'll touch the puck in the second period and it's, oh, right, we got that dude. I forgot about that. I think he needs to have a bit more of an impact coming up here in game 3. So I think the pieces are right and they're in the right spot. They just have to do what they're supposed to do now.
Yeah, he's quite literally the forgotten cousin in terms of being related to Lindholm there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and you know what? He had a great chance there. I think it was in the 3rd period. He was coming up the half wall with the puck on his backhand, and he just tried to he just threw it on net. And I think it stunned Smith because he just had to make a reflex save, and he ends up making the save. But it kind of took me by surprise. I was like, damn, was that really Yarncroc's best chance? Probably this entire playoffs.
Probably
was a fluke backhand off the half wall that Mike Smith wasn't expecting, but he still made the save on. And then I'm like, yeah, that probably was his best chance. Yeah, pretty much zero offense to report of. I think he had 1, maybe 2 assists since coming over from Seattle, but not a whole heck of a lot coming from him. And it's disappointing because I was really high up on bringing him here before the trade deadline. I talked about it on other shows about potential trade deadline targets, and Calle Yarncroc was one of those people. So it was it's frustrating, and I'm sure it's frustrating for him. And I don't want to be overly critical because the rest of the team for the most part is playing pretty well. But yeah, it would be really, really opportune for him to come out here in game 3 and at least get one. Just get one. Get the monkey off your back and build on that from there, because he's clearly snake bitten. He's had a few opportunities, but really hasn't mustered up to anything.
Last one before we get the chat, one last chance to chime in here on what has now turned into Saturday morning here in the Mountain Time Zone. We both picked the Calgary Flames to win this series. I think we both picked them in 6. At least that's what my brain is telling me.
Yes.
Has anything in the first 2 games changed your opinion on that matter?
No, I don't think so. I think if anything, this game was, Matthew Tkachuk talked about how last game was their worst game of the playoffs. This one might be up there as well. Was not a fantastic game. If anything, I hope that they use this loss as motivation, as a turning point to kind of regain control of this series. Getting a split after, from an Oilers standpoint, getting a split on the road after losing game 1 is exactly what the doctor ordered. And now they go home on with a win in their pocket here, and they're going to play 2 at Rogers. So I think you got to do whatever you can to use this one as motivation and turn it into something good for game 3. But yeah, no, I just hope that, I don't think as I stumble over my words, my Flames in 6 stance has not changed.
Yeah.
I still think that there's a good chance that this team can close it out in 6 games. So we'll see. But like I said, I just hope that they use tonight as an example of how not to play and turn things around going forward here in this series.
Yeah, I'm the same. But I do think that this needs to be a bit of a wake up call that Mike Smith isn't going to just give you 4 games. Like you're probably going to have to take it at some point here. Yeah. And so we're going to have to see, I think, a much better effort from the Flames coming up in game 3. Luckily, it won't be 8:30 in the gosh darn evening. Last call for anything from the chat there. Anything standing out?
Yeah, good point here from Nate Thomas. Says Markstrom with a 3.33 goals saved above expected for our advanced stat gurus out there, which is good. Keep playing him. Flames didn't play well in front of him.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot to answer back to your point about some people on Flames who are calling for Vladar to start.
Oh, yes.
If Markstrom has 4 working limbs, Vladar has made his last start this season. That's right. It does. Markstrom could give up 15 on Sunday. He's starting again on Tuesday. The guy is nominated for the Vezina. So unless some body part is hanging off of him in a way that it is not supposed to, he is playing the rest of the way. Probably almost he gave up 6 the other night and played the whole game. So he is probably playing every minute the rest of this postseason, is my assumption, and will be until something drastic happens.
No, I think everybody for the most part kind of shares that point. I for sure do. I don't see why they do it. J-Rock saying going on the road will help clear their mind a bit. Different routine might help. This is their 3rd straight home game. And that's actually a pretty good point. I feel like long stretches at home haven't been the best for the Flames, especially in the second half of the season. Going on the road, and they even talked about it. You hit a bit of a skid going on the road, being with the boys, kind of getting away from the noise of playing at home. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's, can be refreshing, I would imagine, to just go out on a road trip with the boys. That's a good point. I think that could very well be a factor. And yeah, like I said, it kind of happened already once this year, so it wouldn't be out of the cards for sure.
Yeah, it is too bad because I tweeted out today, like I've lived here for, this is a weird way of putting it, but I've lived here 13 of the last 15 years. That brief little 2-year stint where I went to Toronto, but this is the most behind this team I have ever seen this city. And that's not saying that Flames fans have been bad up to this point, but there are jerseys everywhere, Flames flags everywhere. You have buildings it is a different vibe in this city right now. And that's on a day where it snowed in May. So this city was buzzing for this game today. It's unfortunate that it was not necessarily reciprocated in the way that it could have been with a 5-3 loss. But series is tied, and we knew the series was going to be a good one. We knew it was probably going to be a long one, so we knew we'd probably have to have nights like these. So the next one is coming at you guys on Sunday. It is a 6:00 Mountain start for the hockey game. We will be on as soon as that game is done. Audie, in between now and then, where can people find you?
Yeah, find me on Twitter at Audie James and on Instagram at Audie James _. And where can they find you, good sir?
I am at Primetime Klein on Twitter and Instagram, also twitch.tv/primetimepk. Do some stuff with some all-time Flames franchises on there. So that's going to be a pretty fun way to get ready for what is going to be a remarkably stressful day on Sunday. So once again, thank you to everyone who has been tuning in. Thank you to those of you who are watching us in the future as we continue on this wonderful Flames journey here on Game Over Calgary.